The 11th word. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Oh brother, if you want to understand, even just a little, the talisman of the world's wisdom, the enigma of human creation, and the symbols of the reality of prayer, then join me and let's look at this little story, this parable. Yes, there are three important concepts here: the talisman of the world's wisdom, the enigma of human creation, and the symbols of the reality of prayer. Yes, I mean, what is the purpose, the goal behind the creation of this world? What is its wisdom? God could have created this universe, or he could have chosen not to, right? But he did. He created this beautiful world. Why did he make it so incredibly beautiful? What was his purpose in creating it? What was the main point, the ultimate goal? Within this universe, his creation of the spring, then the trees, the fruits, and humanity. I mean, from the smallest particle to the largest sphere, everything inside it, creating the days, the months, the earth. What is the purpose in creating all of this? Then the enigma of human creation. He created human beings to be sensitive and perceptive towards this universe, able to read and understand this book of the universe, to feel a connection to it. He also equipped humans with such wonderful faculties. What's the reason for creating humanity so perfectly, at such a high level, with so many emotions, subtle faculties, and limbs? What is the reason for this creation? What is the enigma, the secret hidden within it? And then the symbols of the reality of prayer. I mean, in a universe like this, for a human being like this to perform prayer, the truths expressed in prayer, the symbols within the movements, the words, the Quranic chapters, what are the hidden meanings they contain? So, it's the universe, humanity within the universe, and prayer for that humanity. This is a treatise that explains these three things together so beautifully. If you want to understand even just a little the symbols of the reality of prayer, then join me, along with my own self, and look at this little story, this parable. For instance, my master constantly includes this phrase, along with my own self. He even says it on the first page of the words. Again, he says, I will say to my own self, whoever wants to listen, let them listen along with myself. He says, I have written these treatises for my own self, I've addressed my own self, written them as answers to myself's questions. So for us too, when we read these truths, our primary audience must be our own self. Since we read these lessons out loud, we also get to benefit from one another. We should never put someone in front of us and try to explain it to them. We should always be explaining it to ourselves. But while we're explaining it to ourselves, others can be present for the lesson. This is very important for being able to benefit. Join me, and let's look at this little parable. This little parable, the parable we're about to read spans all of time, from before the universe was created, from God's eternal, pre-eternal existence, to the creation of the universe, the creation of man, the coming of the day of judgment, and then again to the hereafter, heaven and hell, stretching all the way into eternity. This is a parable that encompasses all of time. With an absolutely magnificent parable, he allows us to look through a window at the reality of this universe. Once upon a time, there was a sultan. Once upon a time, there was a sultan. For instance, here it says, there was. Now, with words ending in mush in Turkish, for example, if you say there was an accident, it means you didn't see it. You heard it from someone. But if you say an accident happened, it means you saw it, right? Here, of course, since God's existence is eternal, and we weren't around back then, it starts with there was, and then it changes to there is. We first hear about his existence, and then, as we start to see the universe, we go from there was to there is. That's why it begins with there was. Once upon a time, there was a sultan. In terms of wealth, he had a great many treasures. So there was a sultan. And what did this sultan have? In terms of wealth, he had many treasures. Treasure after treasure after treasure, all of them filled with riches. I mean, just imagine there was an incredibly wealthy sultan. And in those treasures, there were all kinds of jewels, diamonds, and emeralds. So not only was he a great and wise sultan, but he also had treasures. And in those treasures, there were all sorts of jewels, gems, diamonds, and emeralds. Whatever precious metals and stones you can imagine, he had them all. He also had many wondrous secret troves. Treasures are usually above ground. Buried troves are, well, buried, deeper. You have to do some searching to find them. He had many wondrous secret troves, and in terms of perfection, he had great skill in strange and wondrous arts. Art, in terms of perfection, in strange and wondrous arts, he had great skill. If we think of it in today's terms, this sultan was also an artist. He could build cars, he could build planes, trains, computers, cell phones, houses, I mean all the kitchen appliances, cleaning supplies, robots, you name it. Whatever technological devices are produced in factories, he had the perfection, the knowledge, the skill to make them all. In terms of perfection, he had great skill in strange and wondrous arts. He could make furniture, he could weave carpets, I mean whatever comes to mind. He had the talent and skill for everything. Look, he has treasures, he has buried troves, and they're all full. On top of that, he has this great skill. Then he also had a comprehensive knowledge of countless wondrous sciences. Wondrous sciences. He knew physics, he knew chemistry, he knew biology, he knew mathematics. Whatever field of science there is, he had a comprehensive grasp of them all. He had encompassed them all mentally, intellectually, and scientifically. Without exception, he had a comprehensive and skillful grasp of countless wondrous sciences. He also had knowledge and awareness of endless, unique branches of learning. In terms of information, whatever knowledge there was, he knew it all. He knew about the sun, he knew about the moon, he knew about the world, and everything in it. He knew it all the animals, all the plants, all the minerals, electricity, this, that. He had knowledge and awareness of endless, unique branches of science. You might be thinking, how can a person be like this? Well, he's not a person. This is a parable to help us see the reality, by the secret that every owner of beauty and perfection wishes to see and to show their own beauty and perfection. Every owner of beauty and perfection. Beauty is Kemal, and perfection, or Kemal, is to be at the absolute peak in something, right at the top. For example, at the pinnacle of knowledge, at the pinnacle of artistry, to possess that knowledge, that science, that thing flawlessly and without any shortcomings. And by the secret that every owner of beauty and perfection wishes to see and to show their own beauty and perfection. There is such a secret. Every owner of beauty and perfection wants to both see and show their beauty and perfection. A created being, right? Of course, they want to show it. This, in its essence, if you think about the 32nd word, it says beauty is loved for its own sake. For example, is being merciful a beautiful thing? There was a letter in Emirda. God created man in the image of the Most Merciful. It says there that the Most Merciful doesn't have an image. What is meant by image is character, morals, and attributes. So when we say beauty here, we're not thinking of some physical attribute of God. but beauty in terms of morals and attributes, as in his names. For example, God is the owner of mercy, he is merciful. For instance, being merciful, if you had a merciful friend, you'd say he's a good person, a beautiful person, right? He's being merciful. For example, if he is merciful to the poor, the weak, the helpless, and helps them, you'd say that friend is a good person, a beautiful person. See how beauty there became an attribute? Right. So God's possession of mercy is his beauty. Now, a being who possesses mercy, when there is another being in need of mercy, it is beautiful to help them. Since his very nature is beautiful, would he choose what is beautiful or what is ugly? I mean, being merciful is beautiful, and not being merciful is ugly. So his very nature as a beautiful being necessitates that he be merciful, right? If, for example, there is someone in need of mercy and he isn't merciful, that would be ugly. Since such ugliness cannot come from a beautiful being, he would want to show and see his beauty. Of course, this is a very deep topic. God willing, we'll go into more detail when we study that part specifically. For now, let's leave it at that. By the secret that every owner of beauty and perfection wishes to see and to show their own beauty and perfection, that glorious Sultan also desired to open an exhibition, to set up displays within it, so that in the eyes of the people he could manifest and show the splendor of his sovereignty, the grandeur of his wealth, the wonders of his own art, and the marvels of his own knowledge. It happens with people too, doesn't it, brother? For example, a man is a painter. He makes beautiful paintings, hundreds of canvases. Then he opens an exhibition. He displays them there. He invites people. He is pleased when people come and look. He looks at his own art himself too. He himself is pleased with his own art. He's pleased with the people who come. Or, for example, a man is an artist. He creates beautiful works. They open fairs and they exhibit them there. I mean, when a person possesses a beauty, a perfection, they absolutely want to exhibit it and they want to see it themselves. Depending on the capacity of that thing, the exhibition is either large or small. Now, what does the Sultan here want to do? He opens an exhibition, a place of display. He wants to open an exhibition and arrange displays within it, so that in the eyes, in the gazes of the people, he can show the splendor of his sovereignty. Governments do this too, for example. When the military or some other branch discovers or invents something new, a plane or whatever, right? They fly it, they do this and that, they show it off. He displays the splendor, the power, the might of his sovereignty there. They conduct drills, for example, right? Military drills. The splendor of his sovereignty and also the grandeur of his wealth. He shows the grandeur of just how rich he is. A show of power. A show of power. Of course, there's this. For people, showing off can be ego-driven, or it can come from the perfection of the soul. When we look at God, we must look at it from the perspective of the perfection of the soul, meaning not in the sense of boasting or pride, but for example, let's say there's someone in need. Let's say a man is sick, and you have the medicine, the knowledge to treat his illness, but he doesn't know. So you show him, saying, look, I have these medicines, I have this knowledge. This is out of mercy for him, not to boast, but because he needs it, so that he will ask for it. For instance, since we are helpless and poor, we need boundless power, mercy, and riches. That's why God shows himself to us, for our sake, because he is merciful to us. It comes from his compassionate nature. We are searching for boundless power. God says, I have boundless power. I want to live forever. He says, look, I can make you live forever. See, I created this world. I can create the eternal realm too. What is he doing? He's being merciful to us. And the grandeur of his wealth. Someone this wealthy already possesses a perfection. And in perfection, the desires are also perfect. Meaning there are no flaws. For one with boundless power, you can't even think of such negative things. I mean, if a being has perfection in one aspect, that perfection is present in all their attributes. Here their intention is also perfect, without flaw. The grandeur of his wealth, the wonders of his own art, and the marvels of his own knowledge, what he can do, what kinds of machines he can build, he wants to manifest and show them, so that he could observe his spiritual beauty and perfection in two ways. For example, when we say a person's beauty, both physical beauty and spiritual beauty can come to mind. For example, if you say, I have a beautiful friend, what's the first thing that comes to mind? It's spiritual beauty, right? That's why when we say beauty, we should first think of the beauty of the soul, the beauty of character, so that he could observe his spiritual beauty and perfection in two ways. One way, to see it himself with his own gaze, that is familiar with all subtleties. The other, to look at it through the eyes of others. One way, to see it himself, with his own gaze, that is familiar with all subtleties. For example, when the man who made the first engine, was it a gasoline engine or a diesel engine? Some guy named Group made it, brother, and got it working. He had the machine tuned so it made a group sound. When the machine started working and making that group sound, he sat down on a chair and just watched the machine run with pleasure. He sees his own skill, his own thing in it, right? He sees his own beauty there, and beauty is loved for its own sake. He loves the beauty there for its own sake. Since perfection is loved for its own sake, he sees his own perfection in his work. So he both looks at it himself and is pleased, and he is also pleased by those who come and appreciate it. When they open exhibitions, they put out a visitor's book. The person who tours the exhibition writes in that book what they saw, what they thought. After the people leave, the artists immediately go and look at it. What did they say, I wonder? Did they like it or not? People have this desire to be liked, you know. So God created this entire universe, and He embedded unique qualities into everything. Of course, He Himself sees it all. For instance, when we look at a human being, maybe he has embedded hundreds, millions of arts in them, right? In their cells, their veins, their heart, their kidneys. Can we see all of those details? We can't. We can only see at our own level, our own station. That's why it says, a gaze familiar with all subtleties. Whatever God has created, He sees it all, because He created it Himself. To see it Himself with His own gaze, that is familiar with all subtleties, and the other, to look at it through the eyes of others. Yes, to look at it through the eyes of others. The word other here holds many secrets. Other means someone else, meaning God Himself is looking, and He has us look to the other. For example, He Himself looks at the exhibition, and the visitors look too. The visitors are the other who look at the exhibition. For example, God created this whole universe, and He Himself looks at it. And He also enables us to see by equipping us with eyes, ears, a heart, a mind, a brain, and other faculties. We look too. We become the other, to look at it through the eyes of others. Based on this wisdom, He began to build a vast, spacious, and magnificent palace, based on this wisdom, which is His desire to see and show His own beauty and perfection. Why does He want to see and show it? Out of mercy, out of compassion, because we are in need of Him, because we are helpless, weak, and poor. We have a need to know of the existence of a being with infinite power, infinite compassion, and infinite mercy, and that is why he shows himself to us. Based on this wisdom, he began to build a vast, spacious, and magnificent palace. Vast, large, spacious, and magnificent, he began to build a palace. In a kingly fashion, he divided it into apartments and sections, adorned his treasuries with all sorts of jewels, embellished it with the most delicate and beautiful works of his own handiwork, arranged it with the finest details of his wise sciences, and furnished it with the instructive works of his knowledge. After completing it, so first what does he do? He begins to build a magnificent palace. In a kingly fashion, he divides it into apartments and sections, meaning the floors of the palace, the rooms, the sections. He divides it in broad strokes, then the rooms, the hall, this place and that. He adorns them with all sorts of jewels from his treasuries. He puts paintings on the walls, carpets on the floors, all sorts of motifs on the ceiling and so on. He adorns various places with various beautiful works, with all sorts of jewels from his treasuries, embellishes it with the most delicate, most beautiful works of his handiwork, with the finest details of his wise sciences, like, escalators, elevators, heating systems, cooling systems, whatever is necessary, lighting systems. He arranges and adjusts it with the finest details of his wise and skillful sciences, and after furnishing it with the instructive works of his knowledge and completing it, after beautifully finishing the physical part of the palace, what does he do? He set up all-encompassing tables in that palace with the most delicious of all kinds and varieties of his foods and blessings. What does all-encompassing tables mean? Jamie, a mosque is a place where people gather, right? It means great, comprehensive. A Jamie table means it has a lot of content, a gathering place, meaning he has gathered everything you can imagine onto that table. It is all-encompassing, meaning its contents, its scope is rich. He set up all-encompassing tables in that palace. For instance, if we were to try to count God's blessings, right now there are hundreds, thousands of varieties. I won't list them now. Well, we've broken our fast for Ramadan, so there's no harm in it, but there's no need. Go to the markets, for instance. There are thousands of varieties. Go to the supermarkets, right? Or go to the vineyards, the orchards. He set up all-encompassing tables in that palace. Now the palace is built. It's adorned with decorations, and so on. The tables are set. All kinds of blessings have been placed on the tables. Now what needs to be done? An invitation is needed, right? Yes. He appointed a table suitable for each group in such a generous, bountiful, and artful manner, meaning more than enough of everything, and of the highest quality, both in terms of art and taste. In such a supremely artistic way, he prepared a public banquet for people, animals, for all living creatures. He prepared a feast, as if each table had come into existence through the works of 100 refined arts. He spread out priceless, countless blessings. You look at an apple, it's one thing. You look at a banana, it's another. You look at a strawberry, it's another. You look at a lemon, it's another. Each one created in its own wonderful way. He spread out priceless, countless blessings. Then he invited the people and subjects from the farthest corners of his kingdom to come and see, to enjoy, and to feast. Come, come, behold this palace, wander through this palace, enjoy yourselves, then please help yourselves from the tables. He invited them to see, to enjoy, and to feast. Then, informing his most honored aide of the wisdom of the palace and the meanings of its contents, he appointed him as a master and a guide. Then, to his most honored aide, his most favored servant, he revealed the wisdom of the palace, why he created this palace, what this palace is meant to express, what its purpose is, the wisdom of the palace, the meanings of its contents, the other things in the palace, The furnishings, that's what contents means. What is their meaning? He informs him of their meanings. And then he appointed him as a master and a guide. He appointed him as a master, a guide, so that he might introduce the maker of the palace to the people through the palace's contents. Who made this palace? Who is its artist? Let him introduce him to the people through the works in the palace. Introduce the maker of the palace to the people through the palace's contents, and reveal the symbols of the palace's decorations. Of course, there are subtle meanings to be derived from them. Let him reveal those and teach the signs of the arts within it. For example, he created the banana. He made it delicious, but he also made it so pleasing. There is a meaning in its being so delicate. For instance, there's meaning in the subtleties. He reveals those too. Let him reveal the symbols of the palace's decorations, and teach the signs of the arts within it, and explain to those who enter the palace what the poetic jewels and rhythmic engravings inside are, and how they point to the perfection and skills of the palace owner. Meaning, how does this palace serve as evidence for its maker, its artist? Which of his names does it point to, and how? What is the mode of indication? What is the path of proof? I mean, how can we come to know God by looking at this universe? Which of his names can we know, and how? To teach that path, that way of contemplation, he is to explain how they point to the perfection and skills of the palace owner, and teach the etiquette of entering to those who enter the palace, open it from here, and teach the etiquette of entering and the protocol for viewing it. That palace has many meanings. You can't just barge in there. There is an etiquette, a proper way. Let him teach the etiquette of entering and the protocol for viewing it, and let him describe the ceremonial protocol in a way that is pleasing to that unseen sultan, the ceremonial protocol in accordance with his pleasure. People are being honored by attending. Let him describe the ceremonial protocol. And that master teacher has an assistant in every section. This is how we should view the prophets, isn't it? Primarily Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and all the other prophets. This is how we should see them. Their duties manifest in this way. And that master teacher has an assistant in every section. I mean, each prophet came to a different region of the world, in a different time. God says in the Holy Quran, we have sent a prophet to every nation, right? Meaning in every section, there are his helpers who perform the same duty. And that master teacher has an assistant, a helper, in every section. He himself stands in the largest section among his students. The largest section is the section of the end times, and his students are the companions, and all the saints and scholars up to this day, right? The guides, and then the beautiful ones, and so on. He himself stands in the largest section among his students. He makes the following proclamation to all the spectators, saying, O people, the king of this palace, our sovereign, wants to introduce himself to you by displaying these things and by building this palace. He wants to introduce himself to you, so you too should get to know him and strive to know him well. Yes, a person's mirror is his work, not his words. A person's intellectual rank is seen in his creations. I mean, what is the best thing that describes a person? Their actions, their works, right? God created this universe to introduce himself. By creating this universe, by making this palace, he wants to introduce himself to you. So what should we do? God wants to introduce himself because the universe introduces him. He created it in a way that introduces him. From the manner of its creation, it's clear that he wants to be known. So what should we do? You too should get to know him and strive to know him well. For example, this boundless cosmos of stars. He could have not created it, but he did. which means he wants to show us something with it. He wants to show us the grandeur and majesty of his power. So we need to see this. You too should get to know him and strive to know him well. He says, know him and strive to know him. Is there a subtle meaning we should understand here? Know him and strive to know him. Get to know him as much as you can. At first, however much you can know that, and then don't stop. Because knowledge of God is infinite. Everyone has a certain level. You've reached that level of knowing, and after that, you must continue to strive to know, and God will continue to reveal himself to us. With a good method, for instance, by reading the RİSALE-İ, by reading it contemplatively, with a good program, to strive to know the next levels of gnosis. Strive to know him well. Also, with these adornments, he wants to endear himself to you. What is the meaning of the universe being created with so many adornments? He wants to endear himself to you. What should we do? You too should endear yourselves to him by appreciating his art and approving of his works. For example, we've studied these sections on love. First, a person loves God. Then, to win his love, he wants God to love him, right? You love, and you want the one you love to love you back. And for that love to happen, you need to get into a state that is lovable. And the states and attributes that God loves and is pleased with were manifested in the most sublime way in the person of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. He shows us the way to endear ourselves to God by becoming like him, right? There was a verse from the Quran. You too should endear yourselves to him by appreciating his art and approving of his works. Also, with these favors, you see, he is showing his love for you. Let me ask you a question, Fatih. Does God bestow all these favors upon us? Apples, pears. I always say apples. We can think of all the blessings in its place. Why would God give us all these blessings? Is he obligated to give them to us? No, he's not. It's not like we paid for them. For instance, you give money to the market vendor, and now he's obligated to give you the goods, right? You've paid the price. But we haven't given God anything. He's not obligated to give to us. And it's not like he's expecting to benefit from giving to us. There is absolutely no reason for God to give us all these blessings. So he gives only out of his love and mercy. There's no other reason. For instance, if someone does you a favor, you might wonder, why did they do that? Are they going to ask me for something? Right? Yes. But when God does a favor, those possibilities are not valid for him. God already created me. What could he possibly expect from me? What need could he have? He's the one who created me. Therefore, it is only and solely out of his mercy and love that God bestows favors upon us. With these favors, you see, he is showing his love for you. You too should show your love for him through obedience. For example, about love. They say you can't tell who loves God. Maybe I love him more, and so on. Is that statement correct, Fatih? Can you tell who loves God? Yes, you can. It's evident through obedience. A person obeys the one they love. They fulfill the pleasure of the one they love. They don't just leave their commands hanging in the air. Love will inevitably manifest itself. So how will we show our love? By obeying God's commands. You too should show your love for him through obedience. Also, with these apparent gifts and honors, he is showing you his compassion and mercy. What do all these gifts, all these honors show? We need to see and feel God's compassion and mercy in them. You too should show your respect for him through gratitude. Also, with the works of his perfection, he wants to show you his spiritual beauty. With the works of his perfection, he wants to show you his spiritual beauty. For instance, if a person does the absolute best they can for a guest or a loved one, that becomes spiritual beauty, right? For example, they're helping with something and they try to do it in the best way possible with the works of His perfection, meaning God bestows His gifts at the most perfect level possible within the realm of contingency. There is nothing more perfect than that, right? Imam al-Ghazali has a saying like that. In the realm of possibility, there is nothing more novel or more beautiful than this creation. He creates and gives everything at the highest point of perfection. So what is He showing? He wants to show you His spiritual beauty. You too should show your longing to see Him and to earn His favor. We have such a Lord. Of course, we should show our longing to see the spiritual beauty of our Lord and to earn His favor. What was favor? His attention towards us, His gaze, His mercy, His compassion. Also, on all of these artifacts and adornments that you see, on all of these artifacts and adornments that you see, on all the works of art like trees, animals, birds, fish, works of art, adorned things, flowers, and so on, there is a unique seal. For example, let's say we see a canary bird, or I don't know, a baby lamb, a baby goat, or you see a work of art among God's creations. What is on it? A unique seal. This can only belong to God. This can only be God's work. Nothing other than God could make or create it like this. There is a seal upon it. He wants us to see that. For instance, you look at a canary bird, or I don't know, any peacock or a human eye, and you think, this couldn't be by chance. It couldn't happen on its own. Nature couldn't do it. It couldn't be this way or that way. This can only be the work, the art of the majestic Maker, His miraculous power. There are signs, indications, and marks on it, and He wants us to see that and to say, this belongs to Him. On the adornments, there is a unique seal, a special stamp. For example, you have official documents, right, brother? A man writes something on the document and puts his signature at the bottom. What is that signature? It means the contents of this document are mine. That signature shows it belongs to him. Is that the stamp? That's the stamp. So God, for instance, has created the human heart and put His signature on it, saying, this heart is the work of God alone. Of course, the signature manifests as art there, a special stamp, an inimitable signature, meaning He has created it so perfectly that you cannot imitate it. Let me tell a little story to lighten things up. The shopkeepers in my hometown of Antep are clever. Someone brought me one of those Solingen knives. Let's not give the brand a free ad. My aunt had brought one years ago, a quality one. I said, I'll buy one. The man pulled out 6 knives for 1 lira. I looked, and there were burrs and stuff on it. I said, this is obviously made in Antep. I said, I'd bring out the original. He said, all right, brother, you know what's what. He brought out the original. That one was 2 liras. It had burrs too, but fewer. The real original is probably 10 liras. The man keeps 2 fakes in his shop. One he sells as a fake. The other, slightly better one, he sells as the original. The man has written Solingen on it. Even the writing doesn't look right. Now look, the man is imitating the Soringian art. Whatever, let's not mention the name, it doesn't matter. He's not my father's son anyway. So, look, the man tries to imitate the art, but he just can't. He can't. He can't. Let's imagine something in the world, brother. A factory. It makes knives of such quality that no one else in the world can make a knife of that quality. As soon as you see that quality, you'd say, that company must have made this, right? You wouldn't hesitate. You'd say that quality belongs to them. Let's think of it that way. So whatever we look at in the universe that God has created, He wants us to perceive the quality, the art in it, and to see that this belongs only to God. It can be nothing else. He wants us to see that art in everything, an inimitable signature. God willing, the 22nd word is full of these topics about signatures. God willing, we'll read about this matter of the signature in more detail in the 22nd word. By placing an inimitable signature, he wants to show you that everything is unique to him and is the work of his own hand, that it is unique to him, the work of his own hand, and that he is one and unique, the owner of independence and singularity. You too should know and accept him as one, unique, and without peer, matchless or equal. And he said other things like this to the spectators, things befitting him and that station. So the palace was built, the protocol, everything, the tables were prepared, the honored aide announced the purpose, and he made this proclamation to the arriving guests. What happened after that? Then the people who entered separated into two groups. The first group, because they knew themselves, were level-headed, and their hearts were in the right place. When they looked at the wonders inside that palace, they said, "There is a great matter here." They also understood that it was not in vain, not an ordinary plaything. I mean, all this expense, all these things couldn't be for nothing, without purpose or meaning, not in vain, not an ordinary plaything. So they became curious. What could be its talisman? What is inside? They wondered. While they were thinking, and this is very important, the moment a person begins to think, God immediately rushes to their aid. He immediately sends the RİSALE-İ to explain. What could be its talisman? What is inside? They wondered. And as they were thinking, they suddenly heard the speech delivered by that master teacher. They understood that the keys to all secrets were with him, meaning whatever questions, inquiries, secrets there are, who has the keys to them all? That most honored aide, peace and blessings be upon him. The keys to all secrets are with him. They went towards him and said, "Peace be upon you, O Master. Truly, such a magnificent palace requires a truthful and meticulous guide like you." Why is he necessary? Because the wisdom and purpose of the palace must be realized. There needs to be someone capable of describing it to the degree that its purpose is realized. Truly, such a magnificent palace requires a truthful and meticulous guide, an introducer, like you. Whatever our master has told you, please tell us. The master then told them the speeches mentioned earlier. They listened beautifully, accepted it well, and benefited fully. They acted within the bounds of the king's pleasure. Their respectful conduct and attitude pleased that king, so he invited and bestowed upon them another palace, one that was exclusive, lofty, and indescribable. Yes, this part contains beautiful glad tidings. That king, because their respectful conduct and attitude pleased him, invited them to another palace that was exclusive, lofty, and indescribable. For instance, paradise is an exclusive palace. When you say exclusive, for example, let's say you go to buy clothes, brother. There are ready-made clothes there, you pick one. What is that? Is it exclusive? No. It's standard made. You go and wear it, it's standard. But if it's custom made for you, according to your size and measurements, then it's exclusive. There are houses built, you go and buy one. That's not exclusive. A house built according to your feelings, your subtle faculties, your tastes. So when it says paradise is exclusive, it means God will give everyone a separate paradise, one that they will enjoy, one that they will desire. God will give each person their own exclusive, lofty, and indescribable paradise. I mean, it's like what people say, you can't describe this, you just have to eat it to know the taste. You can't describe paradise, you'll only see it when you get there. Indescribable. He invited and bestowed upon them another palace. So there's a first palace, and then a second palace follows. And he honored them in a way befitting such a generous king, worthy of such an obedient people, suitable for such well-mannered guests, and appropriate for such a lofty palace, and he made them eternally happy. He made them eternally happy. I mean, paradise is a place of eternal happiness, isn't it? Eternal. As for the second group, because their minds were broken and their hearts were extinguished. For example, the eye is a device for seeing, right? The mind is a device for understanding and comprehending. For example, when your eye is damaged, can you see, brother? You can't. You have eyes, but you don't see. When the eye is broken, or the ear is broken, you don't hear. When the mind is broken by philosophy, by false ideas, the person doesn't understand. They don't comprehend the truth. Their minds are broken. Their hearts are extinguished. What is the heart? It's an organ, a faculty that appraises value. When the heart is broken, it can't appreciate value either. So why do these people behave this way? Because their minds were broken and their hearts were extinguished. When they entered the palace, they were defeated by their own desires and paid no attention to anything other than the delicious food. They closed their eyes to all those beauties and plugged their ears to the guidance of that master and the warnings of his students. They ate like animals and fell asleep. They drank from elixirs that were not meant for drinking, but had been prepared for other purposes. They got drunk and shouted and caused a commotion, greatly disturbing the other guest spectators. They acted disrespectfully towards the principles of the glorious Maker. The soldiers of the palace owner seized them and threw them into a prison fit for such disrespectful people. Oh, my friend who listens to this story with me, you have surely understood that the wise and glorious one built this palace for the aforementioned purposes. The realization of these purposes depends on two things. One is the existence of the Master we have seen and whose speech we have heard, because if he were not present, all the purposes would be in vain. The palace is built, the people are invited, but there's no one to explain. Then all the purposes become futile, pointless, because an unintelligible book without a teacher would remain nothing more than a meaningless piece of paper. For example, if I may use an analogy, let's say you built schools, had buildings made, desks made, books prepared, and there are students, but there are no teachers. There's no point, right? It would have been better not to have built them at all. So if there were no people of such high nature and disposition as the prophets, God would not have created this universe. Because there would be no one to explain his purpose, he wouldn't have created it. That's why they exist. So the existence of the Master is the reason for the existence of the palace, and the people's listening is the reason for the palace's continuation. So because the prophets exist, God creates the universe. Because people listen to them, he continues the universe. When they stop listening, that's when he will bring about the day of judgment, because an unintelligible book without a teacher would remain nothing more than a meaningless piece of paper. For example, there's a piece of paper with beautiful things written on it. Let's say it's written in a language we don't know, but it contains beautiful meanings. If you can't read and understand it, what is it to you? It's a meaningless piece of paper. If there was someone who understood the writing and could explain it, that paper would be very valuable. For instance, it came from someone you love dearly, it conveys beautiful meanings to you, but you don't understand it. Now this universe is a book, a letter, written by our Lord. In it, God expresses beautiful meanings to us, that he loves us, that he has compassion for us, that he is merciful to us, that he will give us eternal life. If we look at these things and don't understand them, then it's meaningless. And the one who understands all the meanings expressed by the universe and explains them to us is the most noble messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. Because an unintelligible book without a teacher would remain nothing more than a meaningless piece of paper. The second thing is that the people must accept and listen to the words of that master. You've built a school, there are teachers, they're teaching a lesson, but the students aren't listening, they don't come to class. You'd shut it down, wouldn't you? It's something like that. Thus, the existence of the master is the reason for the palace's existence, and the people's listening is the reason for the palace's continuation. Therefore, it can be said that if it weren't for that master, peace and blessings be upon him, that glorious king would not have built this palace. And again, it can be said that when the people stop listening to the master's teachings, that palace will surely be changed and transformed. O friend, the story ends here. If you have understood the secret of this parable, then look and see the face of the truth. That palace is this world, whose ceiling is the sky, illuminated with smiling stars. Its floor is the earth, adorned from east to west with flowers of every kind. And that king is a sacred being, who is the sultan of pre-eternity and post-eternity, whom the seven heavens and the earth and everything within them sanctify and glorify in their own particular tongues. I mean, whatever is inside this palace of the universe, they all declare the names that are manifested on them. God willing, when we read the first branch of the 24th word, it talks about beautiful names. They declare the names being manifested through the tongue of their state, right? Everything within them sanctifies and glorifies that being in their own particular tongues. And he is such a powerful king that he created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, then established himself upon the throne of lordship. He alternates the night and day like 2 threads of black and white, one after the other, writing the destinies on the page of the universe. And the sun, moon, and stars are subjugated to his command. He is the owner of such majesty and might. The sun, moon, and stars are subjugated to his command. He is the owner of majesty and might. The apartments of that palace are the 18,000 worlds, each of which has been adorned and arranged in a style befitting it. For example, in the 29th letter, I think it was the 4th section of the 26th letter, right? For instance, this world, Hulusi Abi has a question. He asks what is meant by worlds in Lord of the Worlds. He asks for the interpretation of the phrase 18,000 worlds. It explains these worlds there. Some scholars have said 18,000, some 28,000, but it says the worlds are many, right? You say the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the world of the seas, the world of the air, the world of space. When you say the animal kingdom, you can think of each species as a separate world. You can think of each animal as a world within itself. I mean, it's endless. What does God do? He has created such infinite worlds. They are the 18,000 worlds, each of which has been adorned and arranged in a style unique and befitting it. And the strange arts you saw in that palace are the miracles of divine power visible in this world. For example, can we think of those tiny insects, levant? For instance, the ant, the spider, we'd say they are all unique. For example, the web a spider makes and what the other one does. I mean, all their movements, the claws on them, their faculties and so on, are all separate works of art. What are they? They are the miracles of divine power, visible in this world. Their existence only comes about through the manifestation of power. They are the miracles of divine power, visible in this world. And the foods you saw in that palace, all the fruits and so on, They point to the wondrous fruits of divine mercy in this world, especially in the summer season, especially in the gardens of spring. When you pass by those orchards, each tree has countless fruits on it, all freshly created. What are they? They are an indication of the wondrous fruits of divine mercy. And the hearth and kitchen there are the earth, which has a fire in its heart, and the surface of the earth. And the jewels of the secret troves you saw in the parable are, in reality, a metaphor for the manifestations of the sacred divine names. And the engravings we saw in this parable and the symbols of those engravings are the orderly artifacts and rhythmic inscriptions of the pen of power that adorn this world, which point to the names of the all-powerful, the majestic. And that master is our Master Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him. And his assistants are the prophets. Peace be upon them. He had said, helpers, right? They are the other 128,000 prophets. They are his assistants, and his students are the saints and the purified ones. And the servants of the ruler in that palace are an indication of the angels in this world. Peace be upon them. And the guests invited to the tour and the feast in the parable are an indication of the jinn and humans in this guest house of the world, and the animals who are the servants of humans. The guests invited to the tour and the feast in the parable. I mean, this world was created, beautifully furnished, right? The inanimate objects. The creation of the universe is like that. First, inanimate objects are created, then plants, then animals. The earth is thoroughly prepared for human life, and then man is honored with his arrival, right? It is prepared. Just like a person first prepares their house, does everything, and so on. At the very end, that's why man is created later, meaning he arrives in the world later. In this guest house of the world, they are an indication of jinn and humans, and the animals who are the servants of humans. Why were animals created? They are an indication of the animals who are the servants of humans. For example, do honeybees serve us? What do they do for us? They make honey. Look, God makes them work so they can make honey for humans. What do chickens do? From the treasury of mercy, they bring us one egg each day. What do our cows do, for example? They become fountains of milk, right? They eat grass for us all day during the grazing season and so on. God runs the factory, and in the evening, from those things, he gives us pure, clear, nutritious, delicate, pleasant, refined, delicious milk from that fountain. There used to be donkeys and such, they carried loads. Now God has created tractors in their place. They are a kind of iron animal. I think of them in the same way. In the past, needs were fewer. You would plow with an ox, excuse me. But now the needs have grown. Now there are big machines and so on. They are also servants that God created for humans. Those big combine harvesters, for example. We can think of them as a kind of animal too. I mean, these servants were created for humans. In the guest house, they are an indication of jinn and humans, and the animals who are the servants of humans. And those two factions, one of them is the people of faith, who are the students of the wise Quran, which is the interpreter of the truths of the book of the universe. One of them is the people of faith. Now, how does he describe the people of faith? Brother, they are the students of the wise Quran, which is the interpreter of the truths of the book of the universe. Now, we are students. What does a student mean? A pupil. A pupil. A pupil takes lessons, right? Who will we take lessons from? From the Quran. We listen to the Quran. Our teacher is the Quran. And since the RİSALE-İ explains the Quran, we listen to the RİSALE-İ. I mean, we can't read some other philosophy book or anything else. The teacher from whom we will take lessons is clear, right? because it is the one that sees and shows the truth most correctly. The people of faith, who are the students of the wise Quran, which is the interpreter of the truths of the book of the universe. The other group is the people of disbelief and rebellion, who follow their own desires, and Satan, who know only the life of this world. Only. What did only mean? I asked this the other day. It means just. The man knows only the life of this world. Yes. But the life of this world is 60 years, and the next one is eternal. Which one should we get to know first? The eternal one, who know only the life of this world, who are like animals or even lower, a group that is deaf, mute, and astray. Why does he say deaf? They don't hear. They don't hear the voice of truth. Why mute? They don't express the truth. Why astray? They don't comprehend the truth. Like animals, or even lower than them, a group that is deaf, mute, and astray. The first group, the fortunate and the righteous, who were blessed with happiness, the pure and clean. The first group, the fortunate and the righteous, listen to the two-winged master. What does two-winged mean? That master is both a servant, and from the standpoint of servitude, he describes and defines his Lord, acting as his community's envoy at the court of God. And he is also a messenger. From the standpoint of his mission, he conveys the decrees of his Lord to jinn and humankind by means of the Quran. And this blessed community listened to that messenger and lent their ears to the Quran. They saw themselves adorned with many beautiful duties within many lofty stations through prayer, which is the index of all forms of worship. The next part talks about those lofty stations in prayer. We've read up to this point.